All right, let's bring her in. You know her from Arie's season of The Bachelor. She was on some season of Paradise that we don't need to talk about. But she also has a podcast called A Little Help for Our Friends. She is a multi-time guest on the show. It is Jacqueline Trumbull. Jacqueline, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So let's start out with this. You've been on the podcast probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times, but this is the first on video. How do you like the whole video thing, Jacqueline, other than you being flipped?
I'm flipped. I spend all day on Zoom talking to patients, so I'm like totally wigged out because I don't know that anybody else can tell, but the video is flipped. So like
your left hand is supposed to be your right hand.
Yeah.
When you're on Zoom with patients, it doesn't do this?
No.
Huh.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my shirt, people can read it left to right, so my side isn't flipped. I don't know why yours is. Maybe it's the way you have the phone. Maybe when you turn the phone horizontally, you turned it horizontally one way instead of maybe the other. I don't know. I don't know how it works. Yeah. Oh, you're on your laptop. Okay, even better. So let's first dive into Jen's season. I know you're caught up now on Jen's season.
Mm-hmm. I binged it.
I don't know.
You.
Right off the bat. What are your impressions so far through 4 episodes?
Well, I liked Jen a lot on Joey's season, so I was excited when she was the Bachelorette. I think she is really kind of endearing in how she, she feels like a little bit insecure in the role, but she's coming into her own. And I like how kind of cute she is with the guys and not always incredibly polished. So I like her. I think these guys are being little babies a lot of the time with all their talk of respect, and they're all beating each other up. But I really like Marcus, really like Devin. I like Spencer, I think. But
is there anybody, I mean, when you watch it, obviously having been on the show and having been through it, I don't want to say PTSD because you're so far removed from it. I don't think you still get affected by watching the show and other people's edits, or I don't know, maybe when you watch the show, do you try and pick out things that you know are edited or frankenbitten or anything like that? Or do you just watch it as mindless television?
I would say a little bit of both. I mean, I'm not like scouring it, but the number one thing I pay attention to is when like there are patterns that repeat show to show, like season to season to season. Like I was shocked that Aaron, Noah's brother, made the big deal about interrupting, for instance, in respect, and like went after Devin, because I'm just like, wow, how do you not know better by now? Like, how did Noah not tell you that people get assigned times to talk to the lead, and like, here's the thing. I got my airtime wiped, okay, but I also left early. So I think you have a couple of strategies on the show. One, you can be dramatic, in which case you'll get airtime, but you'll also leave early, usually. You'll also leave early, and the time you get with the lead will be fucked with, okay? I was an under the radar person. I didn't cause any drama. And that meant that I got a solid 10 to 20 minutes with Arie every single time. I didn't have to fight for it. I didn't get interrupted. I just like lined up when the producer said to line up, got my time, and it worked out well for me. So I'm just like, Aaron, if you just don't get riled up by being interrupted, you won't get interrupted. There's a producer going behind Devin being like, go in again now. Like, that's just Bachelor 101. And he had a brother who did it already. So that's the kind of stuff I'll look for. I'll be like, clearly this is a producer manipulated moment. Just don't fall for it. That's all you have to do. And if you know enough about the show, you won't. And the
ironic thing is Noah was an interrupter on Claire/Tayshia.
Was he?
Like he showed up on a group date that he wasn't even a part of. Like, this is what I mean. And then I don't know if you remember this, when Noah, towards the end, when Tayshia had taken over and Claire had gone away, remember the whole emotional intelligence bit with that Bennett guy, when Bennett gave Noah a book about emotional intelligence, and then they basically repeated the same storyline. People were asking, because at the time it never registered with me. It wasn't until readers pointed it out to me after the episode aired. Hey, Steve, remember when Noah's brother when Noah received a book from Bennett on emotional intelligence, is it the same book that he then handed to his brother so his brother could hand it to Devin? And it ended up not being the same book, but same exact concept. The fact that both Erb brothers were involved in a book handing over of emotional intelligence on the show. It's just like, okay, this is a little bit played out.
Yeah, so that was clearly planned then. I mean, and it's such a bad look that I'm surprised. It just makes no sense why Aaron would want to repeat it.
And you know something else that was found out? The book that Aaron handed to Devin isn't even a real book by a real author. The author's name on the book, people like screenshot the book and they're like, Googled it, not even a real book. And the author's name on the book is somebody that's a producer on the show or somebody that works on the show. So like, again, they didn't have to go to the lengths that they did for something so insignificant. And Aaron had this, you know, he kind of had this exit where, hey, he's going to leave the show and go to the Air Force and serve our country. Yet he goes out with such a whimper of, oh yeah, by the way, I know some guys aren't here. And she's like, well, tell me. He's like, nah, not going to do that. Like, he could have had a way better exit than he did. And he went out like that. It's just a bad 3 episodes for Aaron, if you're asking me.
That was super bizarre. I mean, I don't know why he would agree to that little trick, but.
And like you said, his brother was on the show. He had to have watched the show. He had to have known about this.
Yeah. And he's like a really hot, smart guy. Like, why would he could have taken the other direction and like actually built a connection with her. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason he had to sabotage himself.
And the whole thing with, you know, Devin interrupting him when he was alone with Jen, then him coming back in to interrupt Devin, and then Devin coming back. It was just, this is so clear what was happening. You knew producers were doing it. You knew that they were going to send Devin in when it was his alone time with Jen. I just don't get, you know, this is something we see every season. We know anytime someone interrupts, it's strictly to piss off the other person because producers know it will get under the other person's skin, and it's to advance some sort of storyline on the show. This one in particular being Devin and Aaron don't like each other, or Aaron doesn't like Devin. I think Devin seems to be unbothered by Aaron, but Aaron clearly didn't like him. But yeah. I mean, it's petty stuff, but here we are in season 49 and it happens every season. So
it's like season 49.
49. Jen is 21st Bachelorette, and Joey was the 28th Bachelor. So this is the 49th season of the show.
Combined. I see. I was like,
combined.
Too, and I'm not.
Yeah, no, combined. Between the two combined. Arie was what? What number was he? 16th? 15th? No, he wasn't 13 seasons ago. You weren't on the show 13 years ago, right?
No, I was on the show 6 years ago.
Jesus, Arie was only 6 years, so he would have been Bachelor. What?
He was 22. Well, I'm sorry, it was season 2. I don't know.
Season 22.
Season 22. That's all I know.
Okay, then yeah, he was the 22nd Bachelor. Gosh, it also seemed okay. So that makes sense. Although I thought it was further back. Maybe I'm thinking of Nick's season. Was Nick before or after Arie?
Nick was right before Arie.
Nick was the season before Arie. Okay, yeah, that's
yeah. Because my friend nominated me because they wanted me to be on Nick's season.
Thank God you weren't.
Yeah.
So moving on with this, obviously you said the men are just, there's certain ones that you do like, but the pettiness between them. And I said this week, and you and I haven't really talked about this at all because you just finished watching it hours before we started recording here. The Sam and Virgin thing. It's one thing to go on the show as a virgin. We've seen that numerous times. It's not really a big deal. Usually they're probably not going to end up winning, but you know they're going to use it for a storyline. The problem I have with Sam N is clearly a guy that got sucked in by production and was doing and saying things production was telling him to do. But to cast a guy not only who's a virgin, but who's never been in love, never even been in a relationship. He said he didn't even know how to hold a woman's hand. It's like, I know why producers cast him, but come on. He was never going to be a realistic choice for Jen. She was never going to pick him in 1,000 years.
I thought it was ambiguous whether he was actually a sexual virgin. I mean, I don't know if that's been confirmed. I mean,
because he said, oh, that's right. Because he said, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, in the limo entrance, he was like, "I'm a virgin. Psych, I'm a love virgin," which is,
Love
like, not
virgin.
better, you know?
Yeah.
But I I thought he was making the point that he has had sex at least. But then they kind of played it up with making it seem like this would be his first kiss of all time, which I don't think is necessarily what was going on, but
Yeah, I just to put on a shirt that says Jen's husband and to give her a shirt that says Sam's wife. I mean, look, we know this is all done by production, but he agreed to do it. And then he sat there at the party thinking that he was so far, I don't know, ahead of the other guys, but thinking he had this giant connection. It's like, read the room, man. It wasn't even close.
I thought the shirt thing was cute. I didn't have a problem with it.
But isn't it a little bit much when you've never been in a relationship and now you're telling somebody you're my wife?
Yeah.
Like if you're Jen, put yourself in Jen's situation. If you're Jen, would you have been like, hey, this is a bit much?
Yes, but at the same time, the whole show is about finding a wife or whatever. So I would have been like, okay, he's playing on that theme, whatever,
Yeah.
and not have taken it seriously. I mean, the whole falling and saying that he was falling in love thing was a little bizarre, but I felt kind of bad for him. I mean, he was so clearly insecure on the show, and then finally had a date where he was like, okay, rugby, I can do rugby. I can shine. That's what this is about. You know, I think he just kind of got caught up in, like, I think the person who plays the show really well is Devin. You know, he gets presented with a date. Like, I loved the stripper date, right? First of all, they all did amazing. That was, I mean, that would have been my worst nightmare of a date. Okay. And
wait, as a contestant or if you were the lead and you had to watch it?
Oh, I would love it if I was the lead. As a contestant, that would be my worst nightmare. Like, I have body image insecurities. I'm a terrible dancer. Combining the two is just like, I would hate it. But Devin came out and he did so many things well. A, he just made it a huge performance. B, he took his body image issues and put them on their head by being like wearing a thong. Like, he went more naked than anybody else. And C, he used it as a pathway into vulnerability and showing her that there's more to him than just the goofy guy. So I was like, he gets the point, you know, of all of this. It's to have a good attitude and find an in for connection. So I think he did really well. And then Sam N seems to think like, oh, the point of this date is to impress her, like with how good I am at the activity, which is never the point on any of these dates.
Yeah. Did you ever have a competitive, I don't remember all your group dates. Once you tell me, it'll spark a memory. Did you guys ever have a football game or something physical for you guys? What were the group dates that you did on Arie's season?
Okay.
Generic ones that you were on.
Well, we had wrestling, but it was choreographed.
Oh, that's right. I remember the wrestling date with Kenny King, right?
No.
That wasn't Arie's season?
No. It was Arie's season, but Kenny King wasn't there.
I thought Kenny showed up for a wrestling date. He was like the coach.
No, it was two women from that wrestling show.
Oh, okay. Kenny King showed up on a different season for a wrestling date. But yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so I
remember that now.
I initially was like, this is my worst nightmare, but then it was choreographed, so it was actually really fun. And so it wasn't a true competition. Then we had a bowling date, and that was a competition, but it was bowling.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was the crystal meltdown date. Yeah.
Yeah, but the best part of that date is that Jenna got wasted, okay? She got wasted, and she was just like being crazy with the bowling ball and like just having a blast. And she was put on my team, and my team was short staffed. We were only 4 against 5. And people like Becca Martinez, who we assumed was athletic, she was on the other team. And anyways, we're like, we're fucked. I'm terrible at anything athletic, okay, including bowling. So I was like, this is going to be terrible. And then Jenna, who's wasted, gets up and, you know, it's her turn. She throws a strike, and then she comes back and she's like, I have a secret. I'm like, what? She's like, I'm amazing at bowling. It was just like strike.
Oh, so she was like actually sandbagging. She was actually a good bowler. She just didn't want to tell anybody, or she had a good round, or she got a strike.
Actually good at bowling.
She's actually good. Okay,
it's so good that she could do it wasted. So,
well. Yeah, it is. Bowling is different. Bowling is a different sport. It's one of the few sports where you can actually get better the more drunk you get. That's the amazing thing about bowling. Like, you play baseball or basketball drunk, you're not going to do anything correctly. but you can bowl drunk.
Yeah.
Because all you got to do is throw a ball down a lane. But, you know, it's funny because we talk about edits on this show. And obviously one of the big topics has been this whole Devin versus Sam M edit. You've seen what Sam M's family has been writing on social media. And it kind of brings me back to your season because, you know, Crystal got a villain edit, and Crystal was somebody that was getting a ton of heat online for the way that she was coming across on the show. But hers got taken to, I remember her making a post about it, like she was getting death threats and stuff like that, which is totally undeserved. I don't care how anybody acts on a reality show, especially this one. Nobody deserves to be told to die over it. I don't care how bad you act. Even if you're calling everyone in the house names and you're saying, I hate all these people, it doesn't mean that you deserve to die. Maybe people can just be like, hey, you should check yourself and watch the way you treat other people. Just something like that. Some sort of constructive criticism, not go kill yourself.
Yeah.
But, you know, with Devin and Sam, I liken it, like I said, to Crystal. When you were seeing what was playing out with Crystal, was that the Crystal that you remembered filming with? Or were you, when you were watching it, we were like, oh, I didn't realize she was this bad? Or were you like, oh, wow, the show is doing her dirty?
No, she was definitely worse than I thought she was in person. But
I
mean, in person, she was more abrasive than like, I mean, in her ITMs, she said mean things. I mean, it's like nothing that affected me in any way, but she certainly said mean things.
Was she saying things? Did she call people out by name? Did she say particular contestants, or was she just kind of one of those contestants that in ITMs was just talking about how great she was and nobody could compete with her and Arie's connection and stuff like that? I kind of remember it, but I kind of don't.
I think the latter. I mean, she may have had a throwdown with I think she did with like Caroline and Tia once, but I don't know. I mean, we knew she was the villain on the show. We were like, that's definitely Crystal. You know?
And why did you know this? Because she was keeping to herself, and she was clearly one of the girls that's like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here.
No, she tried to make friends. I mean, I was friends with her. I was friendly enough with her. She was my partner in wrestling. She had an abrasive personality. She had a sickeningly sweet voice, as everyone might remember.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was her genuine voice necessarily. And she wanted to keep kind of quiet. She came across as condescending, and the voice didn't help. And she wouldn't tell people certain things, so people felt like she was being conniving or something. And then, but the way we knew she was the villain, well, A, she got into like a tiff with Tia and Caroline early on, and then B, she started unraveling.
What did her unraveling consist of?
Well, the whole bowling date thing was a disaster. So she started venting about Arie then. And again, blaming Arie for letting the other group come with us to the cocktail party, because it was our team that was supposed to, because of Jenna's strikes. That's
right. The winning team was only supposed to get time with him, and then they basically changed his mind and said, "You're all coming to the after party."
Yeah. So then she stayed in her robe, and obviously all of that was encouraged. But I mean, one way you know that somebody's a villain is you're dragged out of whatever you're doing and told, "Hey, go talk about Crystal." And then you're all riled up about Crystal, and then she's brought out in her bathrobe to sit in the midst of us. But yeah, she would just she started getting angrier and more freaked out, and then she would sit alone, and then we would make her sit alone because she became a bit of a social pariah, which I'll always give Becca Kufrin credit for, because she was like, guys, we're not doing this. We're not going to be sitting here at the airport at a table while Crystal sits alone. So she invited Crystal over. So that was a really nice moment. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't in. I don't remember you having any sort of beef with her, either on camera or even off camera. It was just one of these things where I just look at it, and it was a different time back then. Obviously, you said 6 years ago, but now you see the Sam M, and the brief time you and I have talked about this season, you're just like, I don't even see Sam M as the villain. I don't know why his family's getting so upset over this. Expand on that more. I mean, if you are to pick somebody this season that I guess is a villain, it's got to be him at this point.
I thought he's
not a horrible villain.
I thought it was going to be Aaron for a hot sec.
Technically he was.
Oh, okay. Well, he was way worse than anything Sam's been doing.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I could pick 10 villains worse than what Sam is doing. That's why I'm so like, why is his family absolutely losing it over his edit? Yes, he's not. I feel like he's giving the show material because he keeps saying, his line, you got to keep the main thing. And then he has that when the guys are on the group date last episode and he's sitting there with Devin. All right, man, what's your problem with me? Devin's like, I don't have a problem with you. Yeah, you do. And he's like, man, your name's not even in my mouth, bro. And it's like, yes, it is, because all you do is keep talking about him. So,
I see some similarities between Devin and, who was that super hot guy? Brayden. Okay. Where I'm sure both of them were annoying because there's a whole cohort of men who are annoyed by both of them. For Brayden, it was all of them. And both of them have this characteristic where they are socially abrasive when it's in a group setting. They're loud, they're showy, they are in some ways unapologetically themselves, but it comes across as socially unaware and like uncool, essentially. But they actually have really high social acuity in particular ways. So I remember when Brayden would get into conflicts with other men, he, to me, made them look like the idiot. He'd be like, listen, I'm just being myself. Like, no, you're the one yelling. Like, no, you're the one making this a huge distraction. And he would just kind of remain calm and kind of turn their words on them. And that's kind of what I see Devin doing. I mean, he has made some digs that have pissed them off. Like my favorite was when he got the group rose and was like, as Thomas said, I think that this is really indicative of the kind of man Jen wants. It was just like, okay, like obviously he knew he was going to piss people off with that remark, but it was also pretty funny and clever. And then, he like really brings it when he's with her. And these guys don't understand that you can be one thing in a group of men and you can be an entirely different thing with a woman. And, if he was being slimy or, talking about other women or something like that, then that's something to bring to her. But if he's just kind of annoying, that's really not. And it's
almost like on Jen to find out. Like if she doesn't find him annoying and you guys do, then why do you keep telling her, hey, he's annoying? It's like, well, she doesn't seem to care because she clearly likes him. I mean, it's clear as day.
I like Devin. I think he's great. I mean, but I'm sure I'm sure there's an element about him that's annoying and that has been annoying. But I think he did a really good job also of pointing out that everyone else is making character attacks and he wasn't. And everyone else is like claiming that they know what Jen wants after meeting her for approximately 25 minutes and saying that like she wouldn't want a guy like him. And he's like, why don't you Jen figure that out? Like, why are you telling me who I am and why are you telling me who she is? Like,
yeah. So, no, it makes perfect sense. And I think one of the other things is it's not like we weren't warned of this in the very first episode. In Devin's intro video, do you remember what he said? He's like, I'm loud. I'm basically like, I'm a loud guy. I'm the center of attention. And really, that's all he's been. He's just kind of loud. He likes to take over a room, but it's not something we didn't know he was going to do because he said it in his intro video.
Yeah, so, it's the same story with Brayden, and Brayden winds up being a Bachelor hero, I think. So it's these guys who are like, yeah, they're kind of loud and annoying, but that's not actually a crime. And then they're really good with women. And they're actually kind of okay at conflict management. I mean,
yeah, I think when you look at, I mean, if you were to look at Devin and compare him to the average male contestant on this show, he doesn't fit in that box. He doesn't have six-pack abs. He's not conventionally like attractive, but yet I think the reason he's winning over Jen is number one, he's showering her with attention. And I think on this last date, if you really watch it and study the last date in episode 4, where they did the whole culture thing in New Zealand, and even on the night portion of their dinner date, you compare his night portion of his dinner date with Sam's earlier in the episode. First off, Jen was the one talking to Sam the whole time. It didn't sound like he had much to say. And granted, it could have been the editing. It could have been a 5-hour conversation for all we know, but we can only go off what they show us. But Devin seemed way more interested in getting to know Jen, ask questions about her. And Sam, I understand that Jen was telling her story about always picking the wrong guys and always having trouble, guys having trouble with men in the past. And, Sam was there and like, yeah, no, I understand. No, you're worthy or whatever. But Sam, as people have pointed out, seems to speak in Nicholas Sparks books and movie quotes when he talks to women.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a smooth operator. Like I think he knows how to be cool. He knows how to be attractive. It comes easily to him. And so that's what he's doing. Whereas Devin had an opposite coming into the earth. He wasn't attractive. He definitely wasn't cool. And he actually had to develop a personality. And I'm not saying Sam doesn't have one, but we just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And that could be edit. That could definitely be edit. I don't know. I just look at Sam and I'm like, that's the kind of a guy who probably needs to marinate a little bit longer. And maybe when he's in his upper 30s or something, he'll be a great partner. But right now, like, why shouldn't he be a fuckboy? I mean, that's what I would assume he would be. Right now, he's like 27. He looks like that. He's very attractive, cool. Like, I mean, I was surprised when I heard he'd been engaged previously, because I was like, oh, I just assumed you'd want to like fuck around forever. But
yeah, I mean, it just, at this point with Sam, it's kind of one of these things where when you look at it and you look at his edit and you look at, they're clearly pitting him against Devin. I mean, it's been that way for, I think, ever since episode 1. He just has an issue with Devin, and I think there's a part of him that probably looks at Devin and realizes he's upset. I think it's clear that he's upset that Jen likes Devin. That bothers
he's
him.
Probably like, this guy, this is my competition.
Yeah, and he knows he's more attractive than Devin conventionally, but he's not comprehending, because he's probably had it pretty easy with women his whole life about being able to get women, and he just doesn't understand it. But he's taking it out on Devin, and I can sit here and go over the first 4 episodes, and I'm not even talking about, I'm very well versed in how this show works, obviously, and seeing anytime that there's a voiceover and anytime I don't see somebody's face on screen and their lips moving and talking, I just assume it's frankenbitten and taken from somewhere else. So I don't deal in voiceovers.
Yeah.
But even this past episode, just dealing with what Sam said, in the 1 minute into the episode, he says he started trashing Devin in his ITM, where we can see him talking. And that's the kind of stuff people are talking about. And his family is just getting so upset over how they're showing him. And it just, they're not doing him any favors, because their big thing that you saw is just like, show the real footage. They're not showing the context. It's like, first off, they're not going to listen to you, family, and be like, oh yeah, by the way, since Sam's family is requesting we show everything in context, here it is for you. It's like, you're never going to win battling the edit. And they just don't understand that at this point. And it's making it worse for Sam, I think, than better.
Well, it's definitely making it worse.
Yeah.
Definitely agree on that. I just looked at the screenshots you sent me, so I'm not like following along. But it doesn't take, rocket science to figure out that that's not going to go well. It's just that I think they're falling for a couple of things. One is, like, I'll use myself as an example. I was very unpopular on Reddit. Okay. But that does not mean that I was an unpopular contestant. People who are watching the show are not the same people that are going to trash you on Instagram. Like, overall, Sam is probably still a fairly popular contestant. I mean, maybe certain people don't like certain things, but that doesn't mean they think he's like this absolute asshole that they're probably being told he is on social media, because people are very vocal, especially people with negative opinions. So they are probably more up in arms and freaked out than they need to be. And I completely understand that. And I've said on here like 4 times, no one knows how to be famous when they go on the show. And that goes for their family members too. And so in their minds, they're just defending their family members without realizing that when you join the pile-on, there's more weight on the pile. And Sam's the one at the bottom. So like, stay away, like, let it simmer. Just...
And I think this is something you and I have talked about numerous times in the past, is, yeah, when you go on this show, unfortunately, fair or not, your family becomes fair game because, you know, the Reddit people online will just go searching for anything that you have said in the past, anything your family has said in the past, anything they've posted about. And I think the other thing is, as we know, most people that go on this show, when they first get cast, very few followers. You know, they're the only people that follow them on Instagram are probably friends and family and people they went to school with back in the day. So you never have anybody. I mean, before you went on the show, did you ever have anybody in your life comment on anything you posted on Instagram that was remotely critical? Probably not.
No.
And now you got strangers saying anything and everything without any sort of repercussions. So like you said, it's very hard to handle that when you've never had to deal with it. So he's gotten nothing but praise his whole life on social media and probably from women in his life. And then here he is now getting criticized for acting the way he did and, you know, laughing about Sam N, which I'm sure was taken out of context, but that's kind of the stuff that they're referring to. It's just like, you can't win. What do you think the show's going to do? Actually show context? If you don't get it by now, when we're 49 seasons in, it's almost like, hey, it's on you now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it fair. I'm not saying, like, look, we know Toxic Bachelor Nation is awful to people, just flat out awful. What Sam is getting, I don't think is awful. It's just criticism for the things that he is saying on camera. Yes, some of the things that people are talking about are, I think, voiceovers that we're not seeing him actually say and probably are taking out of context. But what I'm saying is I think there is still plenty of footage, like the one-on-one conversation with Devin, where he gets just so worked up over this guy. I think that's the other thing that is giving people ammunition. It's just like, hey, man, calm down. Like, it's okay.
Everyone needs to calm down. Kumbaya.
Yeah.
You know? Like, Devin was probably annoying. Sam's not handling it well.
Yeah.
We don't know what actually happened. But we don't need to care. And that's the beautiful thing.
And the problem is, I mean, the other thing is when it comes to the show, they have to have conflict. There has to be drama every season. And it's almost impossible to avoid because you can't put 25, 30 women in a house and everybody get along. You're just going to have personalities that clash. Same with the men on the show. But they're also going to do whatever they can, like you said, pull you aside in an ITM and say, hey, what do you think about what Crystal did at the bowling date today? Like, of course, they're going to encourage it. So it's very, I don't know if you want to call it hypocritical. I kind of call it hypocritical of the show to say, hey, you know, every season we'll get something where it's like, hey, stop bullying our contestants. They're real people. You don't need to take it out. Yet they're encouraging it behind the scenes because they're asking you in an ITM to basically talk shit about another contestant.
Yeah. I just wish I could go into the rooms where they're fighting and just be like a kind of a ghostly figure, just be like, you'll all be friends by paradise. You know, it happens every time. Every time they paint each other out to be the worst person humanly possible, you know, and then they're like BFFs on paradise. So just don't worry about it. Yeah.
And I think come Men Tell All, obviously Sam is going to be a focal point of Men Tell All. Devin won't be at the Men Tell All, but Sam will. And I'd be curious, like, as I've always said, of people who've tried to fight their edit, when the show is airing, when you get to the tell all, just, even if you don't believe it, just say, you know, watching myself back, I realized I could have handled myself a little bit better in situations. That's what he needs to go. Even if he hates Devin's guts and never wants to talk to him again, just say that. But if you sit there and try and fight it and say, well, you know what, Devin really did this and he really pushed you're not going to win. You're just not. You know, and I think, as you say, people are having a hard time, you know, with criticism. It's just like, you got to also understand, nobody in this world, not even just this show, in this world is universally liked. There are people that are just not going to like Sam for whatever reason whatsoever. They might just not like his hairstyle, but he's trying to be liked by everybody. And it's just, and family chiming in on social media is the same thing. They want their son to be liked by everybody. And they're just not going to convince them.
Everyone does.
Yeah. But it's not possible. That's the thing you have to accept.
It's not possible. And I think we're having a moment where really, really good looking white guys with slightly dead eyes, you know, they maybe don't make us feel so comfortable. It's like we look at them and we're like, you're probably a fuckboy or a narcissist. Maybe. It doesn't mean he is. Doesn't mean he is. But
you pinpointed him as that. That's what you thought he was, right?
Narcissist?
Or you said he should be. Yeah. No, not narcissist. Fuckboy.
Probably. I mean, I would be if I were him. I was when I was him, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't, but whatever. Like, I'm not in his head. I don't, and by the way, I really don't, he's not a narcissist. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, guys who look like him, I think that they strike the fear of narcissism in our hearts, because girls have been fucked over by guys that look like him a lot and act like him. He's very, very smooth, you know? And I think she's maybe right to eventually in the season start being a little bit careful of that and start trying to look for some more depth.
And he definitely comes across, I mean, I don't know the exact definition of narcissist, but he comes across to me as just very self-absorbed. He's very into himself, and I think he thinks he's God's gift to women. And he's just baffled by the fact that, as we talked about earlier, like, he doesn't understand why she could like someone like Devin and like someone like him, because clearly their connection has been strictly physical for 4 episodes. We've seen this. They maul each other every chance they can get. And it's just, as we know, I mean, it's like that can only go so far in a relationship. I mean, that once that wears off, you kind of have to be with a partner that you actually enjoy spending time with. And I don't know if Jen enjoys spending time with Sam without their tongue in each other's mouths, you know? I don't
either, but if I were Bachelorette, I would probably pick out a couple guys to just have that with too, you know, be like, I'm not even going to worry about any more of this connection. I had a dating coach on my podcast, and he was like, if you have 10 out of 10 chemistry with somebody, never call them again. He's like, you do not want 10 out of 10 chemistry. You want like 7 or 8 out of 10 chemistry. That's the good zone. It's like, you definitely got chemistry, but it's not overwhelming you. It's not blinding you. And it's not based on bullshit. You know, like, do they like me? Do they like, oh my God, I did something terribly wrong. Now they're going to reject me. And now they're going to leave me. And so now I have to get them back. And a lot of that is chemistry, right? So I feel like she and Devin have a great amount of chemistry where, you know, she's clearly attracted to him, but she's more attracted to talking to him. And that's what's going to sustain her. So
you talked about, you mentioned your podcast, which is A Little Help for Our Friends, that you, I think you took about a month break. Maybe it was like 6 weeks, right? June. And then you came back in July.
We take breaks all the time.
Okay. You take breaks all the time.
Yeah.
So recently you had on you had a topic of BPD, and I want you to give your, because I've heard so many definitions of BPD, and I really am curious to hear your answer as to what BPD is, and is there a way to like, what are some of the characteristics of somebody that has BPD will exude?
Yeah, so BPD is a personality disorder. By personality disorder, we mean that the symptoms that they exhibit are persistent and pervasive. So these symptoms don't tend to go away over time. They've lasted for years and years and years. They show up not just in one domain. So like somebody could show these symptoms just in their dating or romantic life, but if they don't exhibit them also maybe like at work or with their family or in other social groups, then you don't have a personality disorder. You just have something going on with dating. So we kind of need those 2 criterias, and it has to be impairing. I mean, symptoms include real fears of abandonment and kind of attempts to prevent abandonment that can feel pretty desperate. Big emotional lability, so your mood can be shifting big time, like even just in the course of a few hours or minutes. You might exhibit like suicidality, a lot of suicidal ideation, maybe attempts, and self-harm. You might have a really kind of confused sense of identity, so maybe your career interest shifts, your hobbies shift, your style might shift. You kind of, in here, like, don't really know who you are or what your goals might be. There can be big displays of anger, really kind of quick to anger, and that anger is really big. There's impulsivity, And there can be a pervasive sense of emptiness. I wasn't counting. I don't know if I got all 9 symptoms, but what's really important to understand about BPD is that you need 5 out of 9 symptoms to qualify for this diagnosis. That means that there are 256 different combinations for what BPD could mean. And it can mean that somebody with, or if we've got these symptoms, somebody with, oh my God, this is so hard to do when the camera's flipped. Okay. With with these symptoms could have BPD, but then, oh my God, but then, wait, I can't do this. I have no spatial knowledge intelligence at all. The point is, you could be overlapping with only one symptom and you could both have BPD. So when you ask me to define BPD, I just want to be really careful that like, it doesn't look any one particular way. These are just sort of trends. And there's typically an origin story of being very, very invalidated in childhood, for a very long time. And for typically these people will be sort of temperamentally sensitive. So these might be babies that cried a lot, that were, quicker to freak out, to get upset, just more sensitive emotionally.
It's kind of scary listening to you define that because, gosh, I don't know how much you followed the Clayton case, but you really described a lot of the personality traits, symptoms, whatever you want to call it, of the woman that was involved with Clayton and accused him, faked the pregnancy on him and all this stuff. Just
Clayton the Bachelor?
Yeah. Oh, do you not know this? You don't know any about? Oh gosh. Yeah, we can't go there. It'd take forever. Oh yeah, no, it's a whole thing. Yeah, I mean, the short version is a woman accused him of impregnating her, and it went to family court. Took 13 months because she was legit crazy, and a judge ruled against it and said. It basically ruled in Clayton's favor, but there's so many more details. Like, again, this would take months, but yeah, that's what happened. And, but she got an order of protection against him. He got an order of protection against her because he was able to show 500 phone calls and emails and texts that she sent him over the course of a, 3-month period. Mm-hmm. And it's in those emails where we kind of saw, I think the first thing you said was, issues of abandonment. And this is somebody that clearly, she would, they hooked up one night and he told her the next, but they didn't have sex. It was just oral sex. Clayton said this under oath. He said it to me when I talked to him 3 days after the story broke. He said, Steve, I never even had sex with her. So her claiming that she was pregnant with my children is just a flat out lie. It was oral sex. It was twice. And so I know that she was never pregnant, but he told her the next day, because this was a real estate deal. And she went to him for some investment property stuff. They hooked up one night. He told her the next day, they were sitting in a car. He told her, look, I crossed the line last night. It shouldn't have happened. And he said from that moment forward, she basically just lost it. Basically a guy, I was like, man, you didn't even ghost her. You told her to her face, like, hey, shouldn't have happened last night, but I don't think this is anything more going forward. And from that point forward, a woman who texts you, emails you, and calls you over 500 times in a 3-month span and sends you emails saying, just give me a chance, give it 2 weeks. And if you don't think it can work between us after 2 weeks, you like literally wrote out a dating contract for him. If this can't happen in 2 weeks, then I'll take the abortion pill. And he's just like, what are you talking about? Like, stop contacting me. I told you I don't want to be with you. Please just give me a chance. I know we can be a good couple together. And it was just, and then it just got worse and worse for her because it was bad. It's put it this way. I mean, it went on for 13 months. They hooked up May 20th, 2023. The judge ruled on June 18th of this year. She ruled 6 weeks ago. It's the craziest story that ever happened to anybody in Bachelor Nation history, and it's not even close of what Clayton went through with this woman for 13 months. So, but yeah, and some of the things that you described to me, I was just like, that's her, I think. And people have said, like, she's just not all there. And I think it's some sort of borderline personality disorder with her because of the things that she said. And this idea that she, you know, again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here because everybody that's listening already knows this story, but come to find out, she had done this to 2 other men in Arizona where she claimed pregnancy and then took them to court. Like, so that's what I mean. I think it's just men that don't want her, and she lashes out by claiming pregnancy to keep them in her circle, in her web. I don't know. But when you say you've been pregnant by 3 different men and have had, you know, and have lost the babies 3 different times in a span of 6 years of 3 men in Arizona that all said they don't want to have anything to do with you, I'm sorry, you lose credibility, you know?
Well, of course. I mean, I can't like diagnose somebody without talking to them. So
yeah.
I mean, spidey senses, when somebody exhibits really extreme behavior over a long period of time, my thoughts go to possible personality disorder. I don't know. I mean, BPD could be a contender, but
yeah, no, it's like I said, craziest story. And to anybody that's ever dealt with anything happened to them in Bachelor Nation, nobody has dealt with what Clayton dealt with for the last 13 months.
That sucks.
Yeah, no, it was bad. But you know, when you had on, who was the one last time that we talked about? That wasn't that was multiple personality disorder, right?
Dissociative identity disorder, yeah.
Yeah, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely different from BPD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that one, explain that story again quickly to people that don't remember when we had you on last time and you had just had a guest on that was suffering from what used to be called multiple personality disorder, but it now has a new name.
What am I explaining? DID or that guest?
That guest.
Yeah.
And what they were diagnosed with.
Well, she was diagnosed with DID. Yeah, she's a patient of a friend of mine, but she was also a patient at Duke. So my friend went through the same, we were both at Duke. And she then stayed on with Caitlin and agreed to come on the podcast and talk about her experience and her treatment with Caitlin. So what made this kind of cool is that the typical treatment for DID is integration. So, basically somebody with DID has these multiple personalities. We'll call them alters or parts. And these personalities have fully different personalities. And basically the point of them is that, this is a trauma disorder. So a child has been severely traumatized repeatedly, and they are too small and fragile to cope with the enormity of the trauma that they're experiencing. And so part of them dissociates, and they can dissociate so much that there's like a part of them that cleaves off so that part only handles some aspect of the trauma. Maybe they cleave off and so some other part handles only an aspect of coping. So for instance, this person who came on had a personality who held all of the anger. And the part was a he would go in, and anytime Molly needed to be assertive, essentially, her part that held the anger called Slayer. Yeah. So he would come in and be angry. And this makes sense if you think about like a little kid who's being severely traumatized by her caretakers can't safely express anger because it is asking for more trauma, right? But at the same time, a human being can't just never be angry. So if she could dissociate into this other identity that held the anger, then only that personality would have to, handle the backlash, or would have to handle those feelings of anger, and could maybe come to be when it was safe to be angry. But Molly herself wasn't in a position where anger was safe. So she had, all these different personalities, and it's a fascinating disorder. They kind of live in her mind in a set of rooms, but there's like a living space, and they can all commune there, and they all have rules, and they can all kind of talk about who gets to inhabit her at a given time. And most treatment aims for integration, so that basically all these personalities reintegrate into just one person. But Molly was not interested in that. And neither were her alters. That's a common problem. Is they're like, I'm not really sure that I want to go away. So she and Caitlin instead kind of worked to have a system where they could all exist, but they had to figure out how to coexist successfully. So they developed rules. They all kind of individually had trauma treatment with Caitlin. And it just became much more of a systematic process than just like, oh, I'm online now and I'm going to wreak havoc.
Ever since you had her on, Molly, have you gotten any updates or been in touch? Are things improving with her? Are they getting worse? Are they getting better? Are they staying the same? Have you gotten any updates or no?
I haven't gotten updates. I haven't asked. I mean, she was willing to talk on the podcast, de-identified. But I can't, but that she and Caitlin were both here. And so she led the conversation, what she was willing to divulge. The patient confidentiality still exists. So I wouldn't then go ask Caitlin, like, how's Molly doing? What's up? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the agreement kind of ended when the podcast ended.
Gotcha.
But they've been in therapy for a very long time, and it's been a solid upward trajectory for many years. So I imagine it's still upward.
So you mentioned, last thing here before we head out, the fact that this started at Duke and you've been in your PhD program at Duke, but now somebody is moving up in the world and you are having to leave Duke next month. Correct? You're moving back to New York for, I think, a year or something like that. You have to do it for 1 year, and explain to everybody what that's going to consist of. When the move is actually happening, how you're coping with it. Are you looking forward to it? Or you have a boyfriend that lives in North Carolina, and obviously you're gonna have to do the long distance thing with him for a year. But explain to everybody what's coming up for you in the next year.
Okay, so a PhD is 6 years. I've done 5. The last year is called internship. It takes place at usually a different institution. So you have to apply. It's like applying for grad school again, but it's a match process. So after your interview, you rank your choices, they rank you, and then you're just told you're going somewhere. So I was told I'm going to the Bronx VA, obviously in New York City. I feel good about the program. I mean, it's a competitive program, and I'm going to really, really strengthen my trauma training, which is a huge goal of mine. It's going to be a very different population. I think it'll be an awesome learning experience. Am I excited about New York? I mean, yes and no. Like,
you've lived there before, so you're not like going somewhere you've never been.
Yeah, I mean, I love New York. I love it. I'm also 33 now, and I've been living a very different life for the past 5 years. I mean, we are right now sitting in my art studio. I have an entire room where I have like painting supplies, quilling supplies, stained art supplies, a guitar, weights. I'm not gonna have that shit in New York. Like, this is what I do for fun now. Like, I can't drink alcohol the way I used to. I don't even want to see friends the way I used to. Like, most of the time I just want to be by myself and with my hobbies. And I'm on paid summer vacation. I have to work on my dissertation. But am I working on my dissertation? I mean, a little bit. So I don't know. I would be more excited, obviously, if I were not in a relationship, because long distance is not something I'm looking forward to. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure I'm very adaptable. I like change. I'll deal with it. I would feel better if I had an apartment, but I don't know where I'm going to live yet. And I would also feel better if I weren't going to make so few dollars while I'm there.
Do they pay for your housing?
No.
Oh.
My program pays me $40K, which is one of the highest internship salaries you can have. It's usually less than grad school. So I don't know how I'm going to do it. I mean, last time I did it because I let men pay for my food. Like, what am I going to do now? And I've inherited a shopping addiction since, or developed a shopping addiction since then.
Online shopping addiction?
Yeah, an anywhere shopping addiction. I mean, I just got rid of 9 trash bags filled with clothes, okay? And I still have 2 closets that are filled to the brim with clothes plus drawers.
And you haven't found a place yet in New York?
No, because here's the thing. A, apartments don't really become available until the month of. So that's a problem. B, I have such a low income that no renters want me. And then I have a cat, so no subletters want me. So I don't know where I'm going to be. But it's going to be fine. We're going to make it work. And then I'll be back home. And I'm going to have 1 year of making like an okay salary. Then I'm going to get married and have a baby.
There you go. Well, good luck for all that. I know it's a big change for you. Obviously, you've been in North Carolina the last 5 years, but now you're ready. You're ready to spread your wings for a year in New York and go back. And see, as you fly away.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously, I am happy that you are going someplace that you've lived before. So that's at least a good thing. Not in you're not living in, like you said, when you were in your 20s in New York, obviously your living was a lot different. And this is for, adult life, schooling. You're going to be in school. This isn't going to be like living in New York when you were in your 20s, but at least it's someplace you're familiar with, as opposed to getting sent somewhere where you know absolutely nobody.
Yeah, I have tons of friends in New York. I basically go to New York to have a social life. When I'm here, I don't social. So no, I mean, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah. I'm having a nice moment in my life right now, and I don't really want it to end.
Yeah. No, that sucks. I mean, you only got, like you said, a month left, and then you got to leave, and then school starts beginning of September?
Mm-hmm. I know.
And is this something like you have to, when you applied, can you tell us like the other places you applied to, and then you said they pick for you and you get told where to go? Where else did you apply to that you were looking at?
I applied to places around here like Duke UNC, Durham VA. Then there was an inpatient hospital. I applied to the DC VA, the Philly VA, and then a bunch of places in New York, basically. But I mean, it's about fit. It's a crapshoot. Like with Duke, for instance, I didn't match, which is like, it's one of those things where it's like, when they're thinking about taking somebody of their own, maybe that's a good idea, but maybe they're like, well, what else do we really have to teach her? Like, what would be the point?
Yeah.
With other places, it might be a personality fit. I mean, but then there's also rules about, the places around here, like they'll only accept they'll usually only accept one Duke student. So there's just like weird rules, but mostly I applied in New York. And
gotcha. And look, you got it. I know it's going to be a change, but I know that you'll be able to handle it and everything will be fine. And like you said, it's not like you're going away and you have a 3-year program or a 5-year program. It's 1 year. Sure, it'll be tough in the beginning, but you'll get used to it and you'll be fine on the back end of it. And the plan is to move back to North Carolina, I assume, at that point.
Yeah, Jason and I stay together, which is the plan.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, good luck with all that. Again, you can listen to Jacqueline's podcast, A Little Help for Our Friends, which is on Apple and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Jacqueline, thank you so much again for coming on. Sorry that the camera was flipped and you didn't know how to use your fingers to do the overlapping thing, but hey, it worked. So
I realized I could have just like looked at my hands in front of me instead of like trying to figure it out.
Oh, that's right. You were looking at the camera when you did that instead of looking at your hand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. And obviously we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks for continuously inviting me on.
You got it. Bye.